Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am oh so excited for you boys and girls. I've got a very, very special guest. You guys know him. He's been on the channel before. He looks even hotter with a goatee, according to some of you in the chat. I've got Mr. Joe Blewett joining. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing very, very well, Ryan. The last time we spoke, the Jets were 0-0 before a Buffalo Bills game that we won. Obviously, some unforeseen, things happened during that game. So we moved on from that 3-3 at the bye. Hell of a bye week. Let's go kick the Giants' ass.
I am really excited about this. Guys, if you have not seen Jets X Factor stuff or any of Joe Blewett's film breakdown, you got to go check them out. I linked their YouTube page down in the description below. You could also follow Joe at Joe. What's the full handle? I don't want to screw it up. I know there's numbers at the end of it. I'm going to screw it up.
Joe RB31.
There it is. Okay. Good stuff. Always a good follow. Fun to go back and forth with you on Twitter as well. But we got a whole bunch to get into tonight. We're going to talk about the Dalvin Cook possible trade stuff going on, the Carl Lawson possible trade stuff going on, everything that's kind of happened with the New York Jets so far this season. And we'll get into a little bit about the game so far. So let's steer towards the offense first. How are you feeling so far with how this offense is? Obviously, it's a lot different from where we were going into the season. There is no Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and we've kind of had to shift things around with Zach Wilson at the helm. So how are you feeling right now, 6 weeks through the season, or I guess 7 weeks through the season, even though the Jets only played 6 games? Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about the offense?
Yeah, things change slightly when you go from Aaron Rodgers to Zach Wilson, but it's not been the same Zach Wilson that it was last year. He's obviously improved in many ways. I'm sure you've talked about the last 6 weeks. Which, by the way, during the intro, new intro that you got was absolutely steaming hot. By the way, I did not want to let that pass by, but absolutely fire intro. But nonetheless, back to the offense. Listen, at the end of the day, you have to realize that the offense is in transition a little bit from Rodgers to Wilson, and they have to get him comfortable and all of that stuff. And the numbers aren't great right now. The red zone has been abysmal. It was abysmal versus the Broncos. It was bad versus the Bills. It was bad versus the Eagles, etc. With that being said, the schedule does lighten up a lot coming up. So with Zach Wilson just playing okay versus those teams and being like a game manager, I think it's going to look a lot different when you're playing the Commanders, the Texans, maybe not the Giants. The Giants have a pretty strong defense at least the last couple of weeks, but I expect it to continue to improve, not only by Zach Wilson getting more comfortable in the offense and just becoming a better quarterback overall with hopefully more time, but then also the competition is going to drop down. Playing the Bills, the Pats, the Chiefs, the Cowboys is not necessarily a good recipe to have good numbers. So it's a little bit stuck in the mud, but I think is going to improve with just the schedule, and then you're hoping during the bye week they could figure out some of the stuff that was going wrong, because you know what it is, Ryan, people like to blame just one thing, so it's the easy out, but it's a combination of things. It's Zach Wilson not pulling the trigger sometimes, it's him hanging onto a read sometimes for too long, it's Hackett going run pass sometimes, it's concepts that don't make necessarily some sense sometimes with him, there's penalties, there's illegal blindside blocks, there's holding, there's false starts. So it's a combination of crap right now in the red zone, but at least we're moving the ball to get there, so I think eventually they're going to start finishing it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Obviously, the first 3 weeks of the season, and then the last 3 weeks that we just had with the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Broncos, you feel a little bit better. At least from my perspective, I think I feel more comfortable with Hackett for the last 3 games. And I mean, obviously, there's some encouragement with Zach as well, but it felt like Hackett was very much changing the game plan based on his opponent, which I don't necessarily feel like they were doing the first 3 weeks of the season. And I like that we're starting to see a little bit more speed on the field. Obviously, they move on from Hardman this past week or a week ago. You get Gibson on the field a little bit more. I'd love to see a little more Ruckert after the bye. I'd like to see a little Izzy action, maybe depending on what happens with Dalvin Cook. Yeah, the offense is totally different. And I like what we're getting from Zach right now. I did like the extrapolate his numbers all the way out for 17 games based on the last 3. And if you do that, he would be 8th in terms of completion percentage, and he would be 12th in terms of yards when compared to 2022 total numbers. Now, it's a little weird because not every quarterback plays all 17 games. Like it might be, a 15-game, what the average is for a regular NFL quarterback. But even still, it's got me feeling a little bit better than like 32nd, 36th at some points with Zach Wilson. So I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit better on that front. I'm not going to lie. There was a little part of me during the Patriots lost after that week. I was like, oh no, Breece Hall. Oh no, Garrett Wilson. These dudes are going to demand trades. Do you think that's off the table? Or do you feel like it's getting a little more comfortable? The temperatures kind of come down a little bit more?
Yeah, I even just like this year versus last year, I think last year you really don't have a lot of hope with the quarterback situation going forward. You don't have a high pick for a quarterback, but this year you have the carrot dangled that hey, Aaron Rodgers is back next year. So even if it went a little bit bad, at least you have Aaron Rodgers coming back the next year. But yeah, after the Pats week, I got dark too because you lose Rodgers, like you win that game. Obviously, it's exciting when you're there, but you're walking out of the stadium. It's like, damn, dude. And then I flew to Dallas. That sucked. And then you come home and you're like, okay, as long as we can bounce back versus the Pats, end this 14 game streak at the time or 15 game streak at the time. And they lose there. And it's like, dude, this season, we know this is going to be, let's start looking at tackle prospects and all of this stuff. But yeah, no, we will, the offense and like you're talking about Zach Wilson and stuff too, and his numbers and extrapolating them over the season. I've seen some stuff on Twitter, like basically saying like, hey, last year we were 5-2 at a certain point, and look at those games versus the Steelers, look at the games versus the Dolphins, look at the game versus the Broncos. Zach Wilson didn't do anything in those games and we still won. I think people are still kind of trying to compare Zach Wilson of these last couple of weeks of last year to this year's Zach Wilson, and it's a different guy. Like regardless of what the stats say, and I'm not the biggest stat guy in the world, he's completely different. He's definitely a different quarterback. I'm not going to say completely different, but he went from being literally getting benched from Chris Streveler, a CFL quarterback, and the corpse of Joe Flacco, to being a low-tier starter or a at least a solid backup this year, which is a massive step in the right direction. The footwork, the poise, the not running out of the pocket like a crazy man at this point has been very good. There's some things he needs to do in terms of like the technicalities of his reads and hanging out to reads and stuff for too long. But yeah, no, I don't think anybody's going to be bailing out of this situation. If there's anybody going to be bailing out of this situation, you're going to hope it's going to be a Dalvin Cook or Carl Lawson, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping the young core can kind of keep itself together, and Zach seems to be gaining confidence. It seems like he's comfortable. It definitely feels like and maybe it's just a bias of seeing Rodgers on the sideline, but I feel like when Rodgers is in the building, the whole team, not just Zach, feels like there's a little more poise. So I guess, what do you think Rodgers' impact has been on Zach, and do you envision Rodgers actually playing again this season?
It's so hard, right? Because like we'll build ourselves up and get all excited about Rodgers coming back. We're 9-7. We need that win in Foxborough. He's gonna come back the last week, and I don't want to say the words, but he comes back. Something specific happens to his Achilles again, and then it's all down the drain from there. And then he loses next year too because of like back-to-back Achilles tears in the same Achilles. A little bit sketchy, but I don't think the Jets are going to tell Rodgers what to do. I think it's going to be a thing where if Rodgers feels he's ready, he's going to tell the Jets he's ready, and then here we go. I think that he kind of has them by the balls a little bit there in terms of him wanting to play and stuff like that. But I think there's a possibility. Like he is making ridiculous strides, right? Like and I'm not a doctor, but you see all the doctors on Twitter and whatever, if they're even real doctors, but they're saying some of the progress he's making in terms of like throwing the ball and a little bit of weight transfer in some of those throws in pregame the other day. Or a couple of weeks ago, that there's actually a possibility of him coming back, which is wild. So do I think it happens? I honestly, I'm 50-50. I really am, because I would love it to happen, but I'm just so scared of the injury, and I almost want to just secure 2024 and let that be its own thing. But it's not a good answer, but I'm 50-50 at this point. Rodgers coming back.
Oh, dude, I'm manifesting this. I want him back. I want him last week of the season, break the Patriots streak, break the playoff drought, and then come in and maybe win a game in the playoffs. Or maybe he's legit and this team is everything we wanted it to be week one, and Zach Wilson somehow got us to at least the playoffs. You think Zach can do that? You think this team's good enough to get to the playoffs without Rodgers?
I would just like to correct you. If Rodgers comes back, though, he's not going to win us one playoff game. He's going to win us 4 playoff games. Actually, just 3, right? because we're gonna have a bye week somehow.
Or we have that division win somewhere. That wouldn't it be nice to like kind of hand Belichick his 300th loss to set the record, and then also, or was it 300? No, it's not 300 losses. It would be whatever. He's like 8 losses away from the all-time record of losses. So I'm hoping that's what the Jets can do the final week of the season. Spiral out of control. Patriots are losing their damn mind, but they're too good to get the top quarterbacks in the draft somewhere in purgatory or so. But I'm going to manifest this Rodgers coming back.
Yeah, And you mentioned like his impact and what that might have been on the team, but I think it's definitely tangible. Like you again, just him being there and that veteran presence, and seemingly Zach Wilson has changed. And no offense to Hackett, I don't think it's Hackett. I think it's maybe part of him, but it's also Rodgers and his confidence in him. And listen, when you look up to this guy your entire life, and he's in here and he's telling you, hey, you're good enough, you could do this, going through your reads, going through what happened last year. It's clearly had an effect on Zach Wilson. He seems like he's legitimately enjoying himself, and obviously now he's winning a little bit, so fans are going to embrace him more than they did last year when he's getting booed off the field for the favor of Chris Streveler. But yeah, can Zach Wilson bring us there? I think so. Like it's been said 1,000 times the last 2 weeks, right? Like before Rodgers, 3-3, we'd all sign up for it, hope for 4-2. We're 3-3 now. We're through the tough part, and you have a pretty easy schedule coming up. Like the next 3 games, minimum 2-1. You go into that Bills Dolphins stretch right there, at least at 5-4, and you hope to take one of those games. But then after that, you have the Commanders again, the Texans, the Browns. Is Deshaun Watson going to be back? Is their offense going to be capable? I know their defense is really good. The Bills have had struggles with us. We beat them twice last year, beat them again this year. So there's definitely a possibility we could beat them in their own spot. And the Dolphins haven't beat anybody good yet, really. Like they put up a 70 burger on the Broncos, but I think the Jets can get at least 9-10 wins. And this week, upcoming against the Giants, I think is a big part of that. If you come out of this game, you go, a loss there, 3-4. Okay, the Chargers coming up. You don't want to start stacking losses, so let's start to beat the teams that we're supposed to beat and come out of the bye week strong for once in 2 decades.
I want to talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. We've seen some not shiny new pieces, but shiny pieces that we have. Bryce Huff, Quincy Williams, feeling pretty good about the backups in the secondary after last week. How are you feeling about this defense overall?
Yeah, I'm thrilled, man. Now, I wish they started a little bit faster because that Broncos game sketched me out, and some of the other games have sketched. The Chiefs were up 17-0 before you can blink in that stadium, and all of the air was out of it. And obviously, they come back. And even the Eagles, they scored right off their first drive. I think the Pats got a first drive field goal, if I was not mistaken. So they definitely need to start a lot faster and be the second half team the entire game, or at least make adjustments quicker, because they're saying a lot of the reason that they are so strong in the second half is because of the adjustments, but you're hoping they can make them, a little bit earlier, because we can't afford to be down 10 points, 17 points to start games, no matter the team. But yeah, with the defense, you have to be thrilled, man. Like the weakness was potentially linebacker this year. Mosley and Quincy Williams have been playing like the best duo probably in the league right now. You can argue, okay, like Greenlaw and Warner, but they're up there, which was not something I expected personally. The defensive line are obviously a bunch of studs, and some of the numbers don't necessarily reflect that all the time in terms of like sacks and stuff like that. But you kind of have to look at some of the games we played against certain teams. Like Pats get rid of the ball really, really quickly. The Cowboys got rid of the ball in 2 seconds. How are you supposed to get sacks there? So I guess those numbers are a little bit convoluted, but with the defense, yeah, they're studly. So continue to force turnovers, because we forced turnovers at the beginning of last year didn't continue. But yeah, you have to be thrilled. It's a top 5 defense, regardless of what all the bullshit numbers say about. I think it's like yards. I think the yards is what people are going off of now. But hey, you can get all the yards if you're getting to the 1 yard line and kicking a field goal. I'll take it. It's scoring. That's you're talking about scoring. You're talking about red zone defense, turnovers, and the Jets are top tier in all of those categories.
Yeah, 100%. Someone was bringing that up the other day. It's like, oh, they're whatever rank they are in yards given up. I was like
22nd or something.
They're not scoring points.
Yeah.
That's the actual metric that you need to gauge them by. And look, we're causing really good quarterbacks frustration and fits. You're talking about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Like top tier quarterbacks in this league are having their worst games of their careers against the New York Jets. And once it could be a fluke, twice, whatever, 3 times. This is a trend now. This defense is absolutely legit. What do you say to the people that are kind of looking at Sauce Gardner as maybe not as good of his rookie year, and he's all talk, he's getting called for the flags now, like sophomore slump, that sort of stuff? How do you kind of respond to how you've seen, or what you've seen from Sauce so far this season?
Yeah, I think he's been pretty much the same player. Like there was some lapses in week 1 and even in week 2 a little bit. That play where the Cowboys scored their first touchdown and he was in the flat there. Like you want to see him, attack that tight end a little bit quicker than he did. So he said he had some hiccups in the first couple of weeks, and he's never going to be a guy who really likes to tackle. But past that, he's been dominant, right? Like what catches did he really allow? Past the first week or two, and even week 2, he had a bad play. He almost had the pick 6, which he has to finish, but the Pats he was locked down. The Broncos he was locked down. I don't know if he led like 1 or 2 receptions in the Broncos game. I can't even remember any catches that he led up in that game. So yeah, he's been a little bit more maybe quiet in terms of like making plays in the ball and stuff like that. But I don't think people are throwing him at him as much because why throw at Sauce Gardner? So yeah, it's going to be hard to like replicate the fanfare of last year and like the hype around him because he went from a first round rookie who we expected the good things of, but not what he was last year. Didn't expect a top 5 corner. So it's been a little more quiet this year because he's kind of already arrived, but he's the same player. I wouldn't be concerned about Sauce. He's still a top 3 corner in the league, in my opinion.
So I want to hop over real quick. I want to talk about some of these. I don't think I updated. Nope, definitely didn't update this. So we'll get rid of that real quick. leaving comments on the screen. Bam, get rid of that. Talk a little Dalvin Cook. Let's see if this is what happens when I'm doing it on the fly.
Impromptu stream.
There we go. That's the one I wanted to. Okay, this is the Dalvin Cook response that we got to see yesterday at the Jets facility. So let's take a listen to this.
If you're not going to be used more, is it something where you say, "Look, why don't you send me to a place where I will be"?
I think that's a talk. I sit down with my agent, JD and all the guys, make it best for everybody. But that's something that I have to sit down and talk with my agent and JD about. But like for me, I let the business side handle the business side, and like for me, I be ready, man. Like I go to every day I go out there, I bust my ass, I do the things I need to do to be ready when my number called to go out there and perform.
Your name has been floating around in the rumor mill with the trading deadline coming up pretty quickly. How do you feel about having your name out there? Is that something you would seek? I mean, you probably never had that before, your name being bandied about as a possible trade. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a different scenario for me. Like I said, it's all different for me. But it's something that I can't control, that my name being floated around in trade rumors. Might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. You never know.
So Dalvin Cook, it seems like he's probably, or at least I think he would enjoy a trade at this particular point in time. Do you think he's actually getting moved?
My thing is to who? Like who? At the end of the day, he's averaging 2.6 yards, 2.7, under 3, whatever it is. It's under 3. I'm not the biggest stats guy in the world. So you have a bunch of teams who wouldn't sign him for the contract that we signed him for. Most likely, I don't think any bad teams are going to sign. I don't think the Texans or any teams aren't, or not. Maybe not the Texans. Maybe that's not the best example. But teams with no futures aren't really going to necessarily try to trade for him. So it's like the contenders who would try to trade for him to make a playoff run. But if they didn't sign him in the offseason, then why would they try to sign him now? And now you have to attach picks to it. So I don't think you're going to trade for a, whatever his contract would be for that team now, $6-7 million running back who's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. We talked about it a lot before he got signed, and there was a lot of fanfare for him. And I know at least a lot of people from my website were very, 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 very against the signing of Dalvin Cook, and now we're seeing why. He just he lost it, man. Again, a lot of his stats last year were based on the fact that he was running into wide open holes, and I still think he could do that, but what running back can't. So it was a terrible signing, and I would love to trade him, but who trades for him?
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing about the Dalvin Cook signing for me is that we haven't been able to see Izzy on the field. That's really what I'd like to see, a little bit more speed on there. The money, it irks me because, obviously it could have been used differently or could have maybe been given to Aaron Rodgers to help offset some of the cap for next year. Like, that's really the biggest thing. But Rodgers taking a discount on the contract and wanting Dalvin Cook there, I don't know. I kind of see it as all right, whatever. As far as Douglas being able to possibly move off players that he had signed or, that he brought in, I think it is kind of refreshing to some extent, seeing okay, we're not using Hardman. Let's just get rid of him, get the picks. We're getting the young guy in Gibson. This is what you want. You want to have a young guy outperform that you have under contract and under team control for the next few years. I'm kind of viewing Lawson and Cook in that similar mindset, maybe a little more towards Lawson, where you have the emergence of Jermaine Johnson this year. Bryce Huff has been balling out. You drafted Will McDonald this year. You want to see him get some reps. How do you, I guess this, chat, we do have a poll question in the chat right now. Who is more likely to be traded, Dalvin Cook or Carl Lawson? Vote on that. You can let us know. But Joe, I want to ask you: does Carl Lawson have a good shot at getting moved?
I think it's better than Dalvin Cook because he hasn't shown as bad as film as Dalvin Cook, as consistently as Cook has. And everybody needs edge rushers, but with Dalvin Cook, like, listen, and I'm not gonna try to get into all this about like him versus Simon Knight, but Simon Knight in his limited sample size with the Jets last year, the Bears game, the Vikings game, a little bit of the Seahawks game, has shown more than Dalvin Cook has in his 6 weeks as a Jets. I think Simon Knight's run as getting a lot of runs with the Jets was 7 weeks. 6 weeks with Dalvin Cook. Who was more impressive? Who's making $8 million? Who is making $700,000 on the Lions, like practice squad or whatever he's on right now? So again, just really, really upset with the signing. So I don't know exactly who would trade for what Dalvin Cook is. It legitimately makes me question the Jets front office, either one in terms of their talent evaluation, because I have no idea. Again, and people can have different opinions about film, but if you really watched what he did last year, you recognize that he was not worth $8 million. So talent evaluation, one, or two, does Rodgers just kind of boss you around? So I don't necessarily, and I love Douglas, but there are things I disagree with, and giving him $8 million, regardless of if Rodgers wanted or not, it was just a bad move in my opinion. But I think somebody would trade for Lawson before Cook, because an edge rusher, even if he's just decent, is worth $8 million. An $8 million running back is an upper tier running back in this league, and Cook is clearly not that. So even if Lawson is just a player's going to play 25-30% of the reps and only on third down and stuff like that, he's worth that money. We paid Josh Martin like $5 million last year, and he did not have the resume that Lawson had. And it's unfortunate with Lawson because we're all so excited when he signed. Practicing Green Bay, tears it. Okay, that sucks. And he comes back this year or last year, and you hear 2 years really after the Achilles. It takes all that time. So okay, we talk ourselves in this year. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but pretty quiet in the offseason, and then that one video emerged of him running with his back straight up. I'm like, dude, does not look good at all. And he was always a player, like he was more built on strength and bull rush and stuff like that, but he had a little bit of agility to him as well. So, if you're going to sit on his bull rush all day, he can get around you, but he doesn't really have that agility seemingly anymore. So he's just a bull rusher. So I'm not really speaking highly of him. But with that being said, I still think he's a more valuable player than Cook. Like if you just have him and Cook, which one do you want on your roster? I'll take Lawson as that third down rush specialist, and hopefully he gets a little bit more healthy. So I think that's for that reason. That's why he's more likely to be traded, because he actually has some value potentially.
Now, is there a world where you don't necessarily want either one traded or like they get cut or something along those lines? Like I guess my thinking is Dalvin Cook. I obviously I'd want to see Izzy on the field, but if there's an injury to Brees, I don't know how confident I'm feeling in like Michael Carter. I'd rather feed a bunch of reps to Dalvin Cook and Izzy and hope for the best. And then on the edge rusher side with Carl Lawson, all we need is Huff or JJ or one of the edge rushers to go down, and now you don't have your back stock of rushers the way you kind of thought you did. I think based on the perceived value that you would get back in a trade and what you would gain in salary cap space being kind of negligible, I would almost argue that I'm kind of cool with not trading either one unless the roster spot is that much more valuable, because it's seemingly like they're kind of doing the Lawson less reps, Cook less reps anyway. I think it's more of like an addition by subtraction with those two, but then that's the panic of what happens when you get injured and you have your whole secondary out, and now you're pulling Hayes off the practice squad or off the street or wherever he came from, and you just got to scrape up some players. So what do you think in terms of like insurance for injury with these two players in particular?
I'm more so in line with that thinking with Lawson. I can understand keeping Lawson for that reason because and Salah clearly likes him. The locker room clearly likes him. He's a good dude. We all love his anime stuff. And, he got signed to pan down to the Jets.
Yeah.
Like he seems like a good dude. So for that reason, okay, I would be okay with keeping Lawson. But obviously, okay, you save. I don't know exactly how much it is if you actually trade him.
It's not a lot.
Well, he cut his contract to $8 million, right? So then if another team trades for him, do they get like the remainder of? Is it like $5 million?
I'll pull it up real quick. It's not a lot because a lot of that was signing bonus that got pushed into next year. So we have a $6.3 million cap hit for him next season. His cap hit for this year was $3 million. $8 million was a signing bonus. His base salary is $6 million. So it would be $6 million divided by 17, and then the Jets would pay however many games,
Yeah.
That was
so far.
the other team. So another team would be getting him for like $3 or $4
$3.5,
million.
$4. Yeah, $3.5, $4.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that would actually save the Jets any cap. It's probably not a whole lot.
Yeah, even if it was 3 or 4 million, let's just say it's $3 or $4 million, and let's kind of stick
Mhm.
to that price. I think for that price, I'm okay with keeping him as a backup just in case there is an injury, and knock on wood, hopefully there's not. Dalvin Cook, okay, it's an $8 million contract, so I don't know, again, about 4 or 5, something like that.
His is like even worse. Like if we
Oh, is
trade him,
it?
you're not. Yeah, you're just not. I think it's like $500,000 is what you get back. It's like really not a lot. Where like
Yeah.
it might actually cost you more to sign a different running back, like net total, than just holding on to Cook. You
Yeah,
probably have
man.
to trade him. If you can get him moved, then the contract goes with him. If you were to try and cut him, then it's not. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, if you were to, so and it depends, I know, on cut versus trade, because then trade team can take that current contract, and I don't know exactly what that is with Lawson. Cook. It's like a principal thing at this point. I would drive him to where he got traded, even if it's a freaking 7th-round pick. I just don't want to see him anymore, and it's not even a thing where, I feel like he's lost it in terms of his physicality and stuff, or like his actual ability. But there was some runs I highlighted where he can get a couple of extra yards and he ducks out of bounds. Or there are times where he's literally running and it seems like he looks for the first person who's going to tackle him the easiest. Like he'll look, oh, he's kind of engaged by a blocker. I'm going to just lean into him, kind of tap my feet on the ground a little bit and fall down. Like it's legitimately that bad to me what Dalvin Cook is doing right now. So I personally think he's actually he's a negative on the team for what he's done right now. Now, could he bounce back to being somewhat of what he used to be? Sure. But I don't think he's giving, and this is going to sound crazy because his name is Dalvin Cook, but what is Dalvin Cook giving you this year that Ty Johnson didn't give you a couple of years ago, who was your running back for? Like at least Ty Johnson last year, he had that 50-yard run or 40-yard run versus the Chicago Bears. Like Cook is literally giving you absolutely nothing. So him being on the field is an actual negative. And I've heard a lot of people, and again, just being very transparent and honest here, I've heard people say, "Oh, well, why don't you just play Cook at least on 3rd down?" He cannot catch the ball. He cannot pass protect. His pass protection is brutal. So you do not want him on the field on 3rd down at all. So I don't see what the positive of playing him at all. So either trade him and it would take some big bulls by JD, in my opinion. But they pay him every game for being on the active roster. Inactivate him, save whatever it is, a couple $100,000 each game. Use that next year to sign a backup tackle. I don't care, but Dalvin Cook being on the field active for the Jets is a negative. So please trade his ass, even if it's for a 2085 7th-round swap. I don't care. Get rid of him.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research on. I was going to make a video earlier today, and I was like, I'm talking with Joe later. I'm not going to make a video early on. But Dalvin Cook, lowest yards per carry and yards per catch of his career so far. I think it's 5.1 per reception and 2.8 per rush. It's really not good. And I think they even talked to him about it in one of the interview questions where they're like, oh, well, you get better as the game goes on, but like, why should you get more carries when your yards per carry are so low? Like, there's the opportunity just hasn't been there unless the Jets are crazy high up and you want to rest Breece a little bit and then give Cook some option. I don't know. I don't particularly have any feelings one way or the other. I wanted Cook. I was like, all right, well, put it this way. I was pumped when we signed him because I really like Dalvin Cook. I didn't think we needed him. Thought it was a luxury. I really like Bam Knight, and I thought adding Cook to it was more of like adding a vet to a young locker room, which would have been fine, and you didn't know what Breece was going to be. Breece being 100% back, you just kind of got to roll with him. Boys and girls, if you'd like to support the channel, hit that like button. We got over 200 people in here, not that many likes. So if you like having Joe Blewett on the channel, hit that like button. If you want to support the channel in other ways, screw this up again. If you want to support the channel in other ways, Underdog Fantasy has decided to support the channel for this season. And if you guys use my promo code, JETS247, and you click on the link down below, you can have yourself some really fun pick'ems, some daily fantasy, things of that nature. They will match 100% of your first-time deposit up to $500. I've been having a blast with it. Even if they were not the sponsor, I would be playing anyway. Do not tell them that because they will stop sponsoring me. But I've had a lot of fun with it. Joe, I'm telling you, every time every week they have kickers higher or lower than 1.5 field goals. And if you take the opposing kicker for the New York Jets, 5 out of the 6 games, it has hit the over on the 1.5 field goal. So it's just easy money to make that kind of prediction each week. So
I actually thought of you in terms of underdog fantasy. I thought of you after we did the underdog fantasy. We picked numbers and all that stuff for the first game, and Aaron Rodgers was involved. I was like, didn't hit there. But.
Dude, the prop like bonus thing that they get you to entice you to join underdog. That game was Aaron Rodgers over half a yard. Over half a yard. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. They did give it to everyone. So I had it in my parlay, and they did give you like the little green check mark as if he got it. But I was like, oh man, could you imagine everyone that just did this together? And
Yeah, which by the way, I want to bring up some more, and this is just the final thing on Dalvin Cook, and we can leave it at that. Dalvin Cook, 2.8 yards per carry right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody craps on Frank Gore when he was with the Jets. Do you know what his average that year with the Jets was?
Oh God, I'm afraid. 3.2.
3.5. So, we're talking about terrible running. And, to me, the 2020 Jets with Adam Gase and that offensive line and Sam Darnold were just a little bit worse than the Jets right now. So having 3.5 as compared to 2.8 on that team is even more impressive. Maybe you'd have 4 yards of carry with this Jets team. So for all the people who were kind of crapping on people not wanting to sign Dalvin, there you go.
Dude, that's brutal. Because like the Frank Gore signing and having him run straight into the middle. I guess the one benefit I could say is that there's no longer an old running back running right up the middle nonstop. We have a young back that we're clearly at least handing the ball off to. We're not giving Cook the kind of snaps that I'm sure he would particularly want. Let's hop into a few comment questions that we see throughout the chat. I see Harry W come in. He's joining the Jets Thursday. Let me try this over again. Jets, Chargers, Talking Jet Group Buy. We're going to be at the stadium for Jets Chargers. Joe, you going to be there?
I will be there. Season tickets.
Damn right. Harry's asking, any word on the discounted parking for the November 6th game? I have not been emailed the code from the Jets yet. I'm going to reach out to them on Monday after the Giant game because I think it's usually like the week of the game that they send it out. But we'll get discounted parking. I'll email everyone out there. But Harry, I didn't want to leave you hanging. Saw that in there earlier in the chat. Joe, how are you feeling about? I know we still have the Giant game, obviously, but how are you feeling about the Chargers coming to town since we had this particular question anyway?
Yeah, and this is a selfish thing, but like we were talking about wanting to go 2-1 and obviously 3-0 the next couple of games for all the playoff implications and that stuff. I really just want to win this game, so it's a madhouse on Monday Night Football because if you beat the Eagles, you come back bye week, you get healthy, Sauce is back, Reed's back, hopefully you smack the Giants around 4-3, and then you're looking at the Chargers on Monday Night Football, and the Chargers have all of 9 fans in the world, and maybe 10 with that famous girl who was on Twitter with the Chargers fan. Maybe there's 10 now. I don't know. But yeah, I just want that to be an absolute madhouse for that game. So I think this week really, really matters. Like if we lose this game, we kind of are right back to same old Jets. We suck. We're off the bye. We can't beat teams we're supposed to beat. And the environment in the stadium will lessen in my opinion. But if they win this game, I think that stadium's going to be nuts. Because I'll give credit to Jets fans. I've been there for every game. And even in the Chiefs game when there was a sea of red, and even in the Eagles game, there's plenty of Eagles fans there. But Jets fans have been loud when they've been there. So if they win this game, that's a great game to go to for a group bye. And I'm not trying to get into your mind here, but I can imagine doing a group bye. Aaron Rodgers, all that stuff. He gets hurt, and then it's like, oh my God, what is this group guy going to be like? But 4-3, hey man, people have a reason to be pumped.
Dude, if you had told me like 15 minutes into week 1, I'm sitting there, I got my hands in my head in my hands. Aaron Rodgers is just torn his Achilles. I think he's done for the year. If you told me we were going to be at 3-3 with a shot to really start looking good the rest of the season, I don't know if I would have believed you. And like as soon as Rodgers went down, I was like, well, I feel so bad for the people that joined the group buy. We're going to have to watch Zach Wilson right now. But lo and behold, Zach Wilson's starting to look like pretty decent, and I'm actually getting excited. I don't want to overlook the Giants, and I really hope the Jets are not, because their defense is sneaky good, and it doesn't take a whole lot for Zach to potentially jack it up. If he throws a pick six, if he gets strip sacked, you got to be able to move the ball in order to score points. I think it's going to be a pretty low scoring game unless Zach comes out and surprises us. Would you think like 12-9 game is what we're possibly looking at here, like a bunch of field goals, or you think this could be maybe an opportunity for the Jets to maybe open it up a little bit more coming out of the bye?
I think they can open up a little bit more. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, the Giants have put up some good numbers against the Bills, but we know that Josh Allen turns into a pumpkin every other week. So, I didn't watch that game directly, so I don't know exactly how well he played. And they put up, they only allowed 7 to the Commanders last week, but the Commanders are the Commanders. So I think the Jets could score a little bit more than they have, because at the end of the day, the Giants are not the Eagles, they're not the Chiefs, they're not the Bills, in my opinion. They're not those level of defenses. So even if it goes from scoring 12 or 15 points versus those teams, could they put up 20 points versus the Giants? I think they could, and that's what I predicted the Jets to finish with 20, and the Giants to finish with 9 points. I don't think they get a touchdown on the Jets defense. So, the defense is good. Like the front seven, in my opinion, their D tackles, Leonard Williams and Lawrence, it's a really good combo, in my opinion. Their linebackers are pretty solid. Their safeties, I think, are decent, but their outside corners, in my opinion, this is a game where you target Garrett Wilson a lot. Let him beat up on Banks. Let him beat up on Adoree Jackson or whoever else they're running out there. And feed Breece Hall, because these guys don't have the best run defense in the world. So Breece, target Garrett. And then another thing with his defense is, okay, a defense who likes to blitz. We've been in that world, Ryan, before with Rex running all that stuff. What beats blitzes? Screens. Get Garrett Wilson the ball with space. Get Breece the ball with space. Get Gibson the ball with space. Beat some of these blitzes, and then you miss one tackle, it's a 60-yard touchdown. So I think there are some opportunities for this defense to be beat.
Michael Murphy comes in and says, do you think the Jets shift Dwayne Brown back to left tackle once he's healthy? I've seen this a lot. I would go on I don't even know. I would go on a rampage. I'd be so mad if they moved Becton from left tackle. What do you think? You think the Jets are considering it at all?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Don't do it. Becton could potentially be the long-term left tackle of the future, and we didn't think that maybe starting the year, but he's been healthy for 6 weeks. I think he's gotten better and better with time. So you don't screw that up by moving him from right tackle or left tackle to right tackle to left tackle. You just don't keep doing that. It's not as easy as some people think, and especially if the fact that he's healthy now, and he was thinking that some of the reason he was hurt was because of the right tackle play. Now he's playing well. You're going to move him back to right tackle after he had a pretty dominant game against the Eagles. I just don't see it at this point. Now, if I was convinced that Dwayne Brown was some stud when he came back, then maybe you consider it. But what is the drop-off in tackle play between Becton at left tackle and Mitchell at right tackle, between Becton at right tackle and Brown at left tackle? Is it that much to risk Becton's future? Not at all, in my opinion. So you keep Becton at left tackle. If you want to play Dwayne Brown, you play at right tackle. If you don't want to play right tackle, I don't know, freaking play guard. Jason Peters did it. He played tackle for his entire career. He's like 40 years old playing guard for the first time in his career. So if he could do it, Dwayne Brown could do it. Do not move Becton.
100%. I am in complete agreement with you. We're seeing Billy Turner taking some reps at guard, it sounds like, as a backup alternative for right now. So I wouldn't mind seeing Dwayne Brown possibly fall in that same kind of realm, but I would not move him. Oreo has an interesting question. I have not seen this one brought up. What are your thoughts on possibly trading for Patrick Surtain? Why not go all in? Give up the picks. Wouldn't mind having Reed, Sauce, and Surtain on the same defense. Why not? Thoughts? I'm going to say no. Allocation of resources, my friend. But Joe, school me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, is Michael Carter the second staying on the bench in nickel now? Like, I don't. Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it
in the slot.
Yeah, he's amazing. Let's get a tackle. Let's get a receiver, because to me, I can't speak for everybody in the chat or you, Ryan, but I'm not comfortable with Cobb taking 50% of the reps. I just don't think he's very good. I was okay with him as a receiver 5, but receiver 3, it's been absolutely brutal. So yeah, we need a receiver. We need maybe even another safety, like Kevin Byard for his price. Like a 5th and a 6th round pick for his contract. The Jets, I think Whitehead, this is his last year under contract. And in my opinion, I would personally not like to bring him back. So, safety, tackle, receiver, guard, center, potentially. Those spots are all much more important at this point than cornerback, where you have, all of your top 3 guys under contract next year. Right. So, in no world am I looking to trade for Pat Surtain. Now, hey, if you can trade him for a 5th round pick, sure, just a first, I'll take him for a 1st round pick. But he's going to take at least two or three 1st round picks. The dude is number 1, 2, or 3 best corner in the NFL right now. So there's no way.
Yeah, no shot. Aaron comes in and says, I'm sorry, keep Dwayne Brown on the bench, please. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think Becton and the young guns is what we need to see, because Dwayne Brown's not going to be here next year. If he wants to be in backup capacity here, that's fine. But as a starter, I want to see Tippmann when he gets healthy. I want to see Mitchell. on the right-hand side. I want to see Becton on the left-hand side. Guys that are going to be here next season. Heck, Laken Tomlinson's going to be here next year. Like, get these guys as many reps as possible to be comfortable in front of Rodgers next year instead of playing this like, oh, let's get Dwayne Brown because of his feelings and he's been there forever. And, that would just be the worst case scenario, I think. How you feeling about Tippmann so far? Like, the injury seem bothersome right now. We don't really know what it is. It's just a thigh is what I've heard.
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer because Saleh will say he's out for a day and he's out for 2 months. He'll say he's out for 2 months. And when he came out after the game and said like it's not looking good for him or something like that, I just assumed, okay, he's done for the year. Or Schweitzer, find another guard. Maybe get old friend Tristan Colon back or Nate Herbig, figure something out. I don't know. But now he's not on the IR. Now the only thing is, I know sometimes they put guys in the IR like Saturdays right before games and stuff like that. So. Tomorrow, cross your fingers that he's not put on the IR. But no, he played really well. Now I don't think he's like some studly guard, but coming from Wisconsin and practicing as a center and then being moved to right guard, in the blink of an eye. And I don't know how much he actually practiced there. He performed pretty well. He was looking like at least a solid level guard there, or what could be a solid level guard moving forward. And him next to ABT, it was all working out well. And obviously ABT gets injured. But yeah, no, I think his prospects are high. It'd be interesting to see what they do with him. Next year in terms of playing center versus guard, but it's a good thing with him because you've seen that he can play guard pretty well now. So do they give him, or does that give the Jets some flexibility in terms of, free agency? Hey, center or guard, get one of them. And Tippmann's flexible enough where he could move to either one of those spots that we're not able to secure. So high hopes for him. And you just have to hope that he gets back, soon healthy because, the Jets are severely lacking guard depth right now because if Schweitzer goes down, if Tomlinson goes down, it's Billy Turner. And that's it. So we need something else there.
I've seen this get tossed around a few times, and this is the idea of can Brownlee be activated last minute this week? What were your thoughts of Brownlee over the course of training camp, and any thought to possibly some situation where maybe you have Lazard and maybe Brownlee on the outside, maybe Garrett pops into the slot or something along those lines? What are your thoughts on Brownlee in general in this offense?
Yeah, I don't want to be the Debbie. I think it just comes with realism. Like he's a UDFA and didn't really play a lot this year for a reason. So he has, I think, good physical upside, but he has a really, really long way to go in terms of like route running and stuff like that. Even in the preseason, getting jammed all the time. His catching technique is pretty poor. I know he had that big one-handed catch, but it doesn't mean down and down basis your catching technique is good. So I think there's a possibility for him in the future. But if you're telling me, hey, let's just go kind of, for lack of a better term here, balls deep with the Brownlee train, and he's your starter over Cobb, and let's just hope that works out. I think you got some green glasses on in that instance if you are looking at it like, hey, Brownlee is the savior. So I think that if they are to make a move at the deadline, it is for that receiver. Because they really do not have a guy who, in my opinion, is deserving of being, that third guy right now. And the third guy in today's NFL is a quasi starter.
Now, I guess the question I have maybe is as far as like touches would go. We're seeing a lot of 2 tight end, 3 tight end type sets. And there's probably to some extent like, okay, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, those are your 1A, 1B, whatever, if you're passing it, you're going to look towards Garrett. If you're running it, it's obviously going to be Breece. And then you got Conklin who's playing well. And then that next tier of potential target is it another tight end, or would it be a Lazard, or do you think like how far down the pecking order is wide receiver 3 in your opinion based on the rest of the guys on this roster?
Well, in terms of targets, obviously you have Conklin, you have Wilson, and then you have Breece. So, and then you have Lazard, obviously. So it's like it's your 5th option, but it's 2023. You're running 11 personnel. Everybody in the NFL is running it over 50%. Or more. I think the lowest team last year was like 55 or 56% or something like that. And I could even be a little bit low on that. So you need that third receiver. And, if you look at the Jets realistically right now, if they're trying to pass the ball and teams are stacking the box against them, again, not trying to be like a downer on some of the players, but Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin are, in my opinion, at their position are the only guys who are like plus route runners. If you have a team like the Giants, let's say the Giants were more healthy, or if they're just a better team in general, if you're facing a team who's going to play heavy man coverage, who was getting open on this team versus man coverage? Is it Lazard? Maybe not so. Maybe on some plays, is it Cobb? No, Gibson is raw and has a couple of catches and a couple of rushes, but you really don't have that other guy to win on routes other than Wilson and Conklin right now. And in today's NFL, especially with Rodgers, you can get away with that. With Zach Wilson, who is still trying to become a NFL quarterback, to give him Cobb running out there and not getting open ever is not a good idea for a quarterback. So yes, you can kind of replace some of the wide receiver 3 reps with bringing in more, Ruckert and all of that stuff. But again, it's not 1980, it's 2023. So you need a third receiver.
Boys and girls, if you want to ask Joe and I a question, put your comment in the live chat, put a capital Q and then a colon. That'll trigger to me that I at least know it's a question. I'm not just throwing in some random comment that you're talking back and forth with one another on. And I see Ryan in here. Ryan says, our greatest concern against the Giants this week, thoughts. What do you think the biggest question mark is for the Jets heading into this week, Joe?
Yeah, my only concern with the Giants is if they are actually able to shut down the run game, and if their D tackles can, force the Jets to be in second and longs and third and longs, and you're forcing Zach Wilson to throw the ball. So it's really that. And then are they able to rattle Zach Wilson a little bit with the blitz? Is he able to replace the blitz? Is he able to see it clearly? So yeah, a little bit worried about their blitzing, but they really, I don't think Zach Wilson has actually really bad numbers against the blitz in his career. And he's definitely done better this year in terms of identifying the blitz, identifying who's blitzing, replacing him with the hot route and all of that stuff. So it's somewhat concerning with the blitz, but I'm not, again, overly concerned with it. I'm just concerned with their defensive tackles on the defensive side of the ball. And then in terms of the offense, if you are going to study this Jets defense, okay, they play aggressive. How do you beat that? Obviously, you're going to throw some screens and stuff like that to Saquon Barkley. So Barkley a little bit in the passing game and getting towards the edges of the defense. And then Waller, maybe a little bit of concern, but realistically, the Jets have been they've been bad versus tight ends this year, but a lot of the bad that's come this year has been from busted coverages, right? Like the Pats game was a busted coverage. I believe there's a busted coverage in the Chiefs game.
Or something crazy.
Yeah, but it's not any tight ends like one-on-one destroying us. It's more like, okay, they had a problem with the defensive concept and they didn't communicate well. So they haven't got abused by tight ends this year. And then having a guy in Tony Adams who at I believe it was Illinois, he played corner. So he has that flexibility to play man coverage on a guy like Darren Waller who's eating you up a little bit. And then you also have a guy, Quincy Williams, who has greatly improved his coverage this year. So you have those two guys coverage on a Waller. There's really, I don't want to be like an overconfident Jets fans, but I just don't see a lot of ways they're going to be able to put up points in this Jets defense. I think the offense could do enough to make it somewhat of a comfortable win.
Nose Kills comes in with a super chat. Thank you so much. He says, didn't like Lazard's body language after the block, flag, and dropped pass. Next step for Zach is to grab guys like that, lift them up. Joe, gonna get the baby socks in the mail next week. Procrastinating. Yeah, Joe, you got a new one coming on the way. How far out you now?
3 months, which by the way, the setup with just like an AC unit behind me is not my ideal setup, but I got kind of kicked out of my office. So my room right next to me, once that gets done with the rugs and all that stuff, we're going to put up some more graphics and try to make it a little bit more professional, maybe like not Ryan's level, but at least like halfway there. So yeah, we have 3 months until that's coming. I really appreciate you, Nose Kills. I'm sorry I missed, I believe it was your wife's email about that. I wanted him up at the game with Nose Kills, but I missed it. I don't know if the email. Sometimes people like DM me or message me at like 11 o'clock on a game day. And Ryan, you came to the tailgate for at least 2 minutes. Like, what we're about.
Dude, not focused on social media whatsoever. Yeah. Shotgun and beers, having some great like tacos off the skillet. Incredible. Yeah. Good time. But Nose Kills, I appreciate you, my friend, and thank you for the super chat to Ryan. But yeah, we got 3 months, Ryan, until first baby Blewett pops out. Dude, we've obviously got Shay and Ren right now, and Shay has RSV. We just took Ren to the doctor. She's got RSV, so now they're both coughing, and the whole Delaney clan is like sick, and it's just absolutely brutal. It's a nightmare. Everyone's sneezing and wiping snot all over everything, but it's fun. You love them, right? It's going to be a good time. I'm just so tired all the time. Oh, dude, yeah. I'm definitely, from a content perspective, definitely 2 is a lot more challenging than the 1 to make stuff, but it is fun. Just watching Shay start to figure stuff out. Like she looked at a freckle the other day, pointed to it, and smiled, and I was like, oh, you see a freckle. That's adorable. You must be the smartest kid on the planet. Like, there's no one smarter than you right now, and it's truly the best. Undoubtedly, yeah. I'm excited. So Nosecills is saying he didn't like Lazard's body language, do you think Zach has to kind of take the reins a little bit more and not be so much of the maybe be a little more of an aggressive leader. I think that's maybe what Nose Kills is asking about.
An aggressive leader? Yeah, I don't know what the honestly. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you're like, oh, body language. Hey, let's go. Come on, you got to rally the guys up or something. Like Zach doesn't seem like a rah type guy to me.
Yeah, but like with Lazard in terms of his body language, like he was the one who after the Chiefs game was the Chiefs game where like he was lifting up Zach Wilson, and he was a guy in Hard Knocks that said the receivers like, hey, you got to pick your shit up basically, or Rodgers isn't going to throw you the ball. So there's different ways to lead. And you've heard players talk about CJ Mosley. He's very quiet and stuff like that, but he has that presence about him. And when he walks into the locker room and he says something, it's like, holy shit, he's talking. Like, let's listen to this guy. So I don't think it has to be so like brash, bravado, like rah to be a good leader. And I don't think Lazard's ever been that guy, but he clearly has good work ethic working from a UDFA to impressing Rodgers and all that stuff. So unless there's some unless I didn't see anything about, maybe there's some video circulating that maybe I didn't see about his body language, but I think and he's been fine. In terms of Zach Wilson, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to be a rah guy and try to pump up the group when you haven't necessarily had the biggest track record, right? Like if you have a really, I don't know, you're playing 5-on-5 basketball and there's a guy who's 0 for 13 in that game and he's pumping you guys up to make shots. It's like, bro, you're 0 for 13. So like, let's chill a little bit. So I think it comes with time and him be like having more success. Then he kind of gets pushed into that role, but I don't think you want to force it because guys will see through that stuff, especially like those alpha males out there.
So Wild Wave comes in. He says, thoughts on Jermaine Johnson? Joe, I know you were pretty down on him. So going into the draft, I was very, very high on Jermaine Johnson. I've loved how he's developed, and I actually really like how they brought him along. They had him behind John Franklin Myers and Carl Lawson last year, and he kind of learned through osmosis while getting, I think it was 25% of the snaps, and now he's playing, I think it's at least 50% of the snaps. The guy's on the field all the time, and it's really, really, you could see the leap that he's taken from year one to year two. How are your feelings towards Jermaine Johnson now that you've seen him through 6 weeks of this season?
Yeah, and like the Jermaine Johnson stuff for me, it's not like I hated the player. The only disagreement I had, I would say, with the general Jets fan consensus was drafting him in the top 10. That's the only spot I didn't want to draft. And then some people are saying, oh well, if certain edge rushers are off the board, let's take him at 4. I'm like, dude, sauce, please sauce. And thank God there's tweets. So there's a great thing, Ryan. You know what it is? Doing live streams and doing content, there's always receipts. Always. Yeah. So you can get dunked on or you can go back to them. And I said sauce for quite a while. And I was really thrilled about that. And then even at 10, I wouldn't have loved the pick. I would have been okay with it. My problem with JJ a lot in college was just a pass rush plan. That it wasn't, let's just say it was a lack of a pass rush plan. There's a lot of hesitancy. And you saw that a lot in year one. And then this year, he's looked like he's got a little bit more like cut and lean, like a little bit stronger, like just like physically. And then the last few games, at the first couple of weeks, he was definitely doing it still, where he's running his feet a little bit more. A lot of his plays were because of effort, but not necessarily because of like winning off of the ball within 3 seconds. But the last few weeks, he's turned it on. He's gotten much more physical. There's a lot less chopping his feet at the contact point and just bull rushing the crap out of people the last couple of weeks. So I'm thrilled with JJ. You're talking about a really solid edge defender, and now if he's going to develop into at least a decent pass rusher, you got to be thrilled with the pick. But again, didn't hate the player. It's just where people valued him as a top 10 guy. Didn't like it. 27, okay, good. I think it was 27 when they traded up to, or 26, 25, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Good pick there. Year one had his lumps. Even in the beginning of this year, had his lumps, but he's really turning on in the last few weeks. So I'm definitely pumped for his arc right now.
Dude, shows how much I know. You and I were both on Sauce, like adamantly about Sauce. And I was like, okay, if Sauce isn't there and Hutchinson's off the board and Walker's off the board, I was like, I don't want Stingley. I was like, I would take Jermaine Johnson. I was like, I want Sauce at 4. I want Jermaine Johnson at 10. And I remember you just like, no, Ryan, you do not want Jermaine Johnson at 10. I was like, okay. And clearly it's a good thing I'm not the GM because Garrett Wilson is so valuable and we still got Jermaine Johnson anyway. So I would have overdrafted him by like 15 slots, 16 slots. Math is hard. See, I can't even write contracts because I can't do math.
Yeah, I'm terrible with math. I'm the worst in terms of like the film reviews. I like, again, being very open right here, I'm the worst with like degrees, like 75-degree angle or 60. I have no idea. You might as well be speaking Chinese to me when we're talking about degrees. So I get it. We all have our flaws.
Oh man, dude, I'll tell you what. The weather outside was a solid 70 degrees today, and it was absolutely wonderful. Was it that warm down by you? You're a little bit central Jersey, I guess, right? You're right around
Central
Pork Roll or so. Pork Roll.
Yes. Right at that line where it kind of gets it gets gray. But yes, Central Jersey, which is 1,000% a thing. That's right in dead smack in the middle.
So, boys and girls, we're gonna hop off here. Joe, anything that you're currently working on that you want to let the people out in the chat know?
No, it's so you have the film reviews every week. We try to put out like a little short of them, usually like 10 to 15 minute clip of the 2-hour film show. But a lot of stuff that we talk about on the show and all the stuff about people and lack of pass rush plan and all this stuff, all the techniques, all the film. That's what I do on Jets X Factor. Joe RB31 on Twitter, Blewett Splits. Look, find it there. And we do live streams like this. Take questions. There's a bunch of questions in here that I saw that we didn't get to. So if you want to come into one of the streams next week, ask these questions. I'd be glad to answer them. I would welcome any new people in there. So I definitely appreciate you having me on with your YouTube channel, which is probably, I don't know a lot of like the other guys' subscribers numbers and stuff like that, but at least the top 3 YouTube channel right now in terms of subscribers. So killing it.
I appreciate that. It's chugging right along. You got Asman and Ian. They're way above me, but I got my nice little I'm at 28,000 right now. So
I'm like poking through trying to get to 10. I'm like, come on, please. So
you deserve.
I appreciate it.
You deserve a lot more. For those of you guys that have not watched Joe's breakdowns, you got to go check them out. Link is in the description down below. Joe's on here probably once a month, I would say at this point. Love talking to him. And if you get a chance to run into him at a game, absolutely buy this dude a beer. He is a fun time. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
For sure. Yeah. And I think